Highlight of the day on a Thursday. Kind of choppy session in April. But I want to talk about magnets. We look at big buying and selling orders that come in the book of like 100 or more, and you'll see it with gray lines that come on these charts. And so you could see it in the order book. You could see it with heat maps. To make it simple, Dave's put them on this chart with gray lines, so you know it's a big order. Now, conventional wisdom says buyers buy it, sellers sell it. But that's doing the obvious. And when the obvious in this business has to be, it's probably not going to work. The obvious is not going to work if it indeed is obvious. So why do I call these big orders with a pretty decent probability magnets? Magnets, meaning they're going to draw price down to them. And you could use them as a directional guide. If price is above a magnet, you probably could be bearish, or you could confirm your bearish bias if you're already bearish. Bearish meaning you think price is going to go lower at some point. Good target. Why is it a magnet? Well, let me explain. When people see big buying come in, they do what would be obvious and conventional wisdom. They buy it. And a lot of people buy it for obvious reasons. They're weak and they're long. They're not strong longs, they're weak longs. And as you know, if you follow me for any period of time, when you're long, you are now a seller. You have become a seller. When you dress up as a long, you now have become a seller. So if indeed a big buy order creates a lot of buying for people to open up a long, because they go like school children, let's buy it. Look at the big buying. They're stacking. Let's buy it. And they buy it up and create all these long positions. Every time there's a long position, you got more selling. Long position, more selling. Long position, more selling. And if indeed those longs are weak and are just using that as the reason to get in, because they all turn in, longs turn into sellers, it creates the pressure to push it down to the reason why they got long in the first place. When you get a lot of people long, it creates selling pressure to push it down to the reason why they got long in the first place. Don't have to take my word for it. You guys in the room, how often do you see it? A lot. So it's important to stay focused. Stacking and pulling have become too obvious to use, and usually the premium is already taken out, which means if you see a lot of buying coming in, it's already, it goes up together. So when this came in, I think from before, the market ran away from it and eventually will go down and trade it. Certainly not 100%, but it's a good probability. It really is. And it gives people the sense of why it would be an advantage, because it's opposite of conventional wisdom. In trading, when it's really competitive, everybody trying to predict where price is going and everybody fighting with their opinions, it's important to recognize the obvious and do the opposite when the obvious isn't working. Not when the obvious is working, because then you get run over. But when the obvious doesn't work, that's where your greatest edges and advantages are going to be. It's when the obvious doesn't work and you got all the suckers, all the sheep loaded up the wrong way. Because remember, after you buy it, you're a seller. What that means is after you buy it to get long, you are now a seller. You've never read that in a book because I never wrote a book. But that's the key and one of the first things you would learn from me if you started from scratch. After you buy it, you're a seller. Really important to understand how positions push price around, influence price, other people's positions. Everybody's worried about how they feel when they're in a position, and that's important, but they're so introspective. How do I feel? How do I feel? BS. How do other people feel? Because if you could predict how other people feel, you'll feel a lot better about yourself. Subscribe to the channel so we could start doing some live events. Have a safe rest of the day. And if you live in California, go to the beach. You'll be fine. Tell them you know me.